Well, happy Trinity Sunday, church. Happy Trinity Sunday, Thomas. Thanks. This week, we find ourselves at one of the great inflection points on the church calendar. Behind us is, well, so much of what we think of as the big stuff. Our church year begins in November or December, preparing during Advent for the coming of the Christ, both into our world and into our hearts during the season of Christmas. We celebrate the bright, illuminating light of that Christ during Epiphany. We mark our brokenness during Lent. We walk with God as God walked the way of the cross. And we spend weeks on end reveling in our redemption from the day of resurrection until last week. Last week, this space was filled with balloons and streamers and a bird on a stick. We talked about how the flame of God's Spirit descended at Pentecost and how it still sparks life and love among us even today. We baptized. We welcomed new folks into this holy household, God's household. We had ourselves, as many dear friends in the bluegrass would say, a big time. I hope in some way that we all found, as Carol illustrated in last week's sermon, some thirst-quenching refreshment as our souls rested in this space. And today is, well, Trinity Sunday. No balloons, no streamers, no bird on a stick. Today, we have what many would consider one of the stickiest, hardest to understand things about Christianity, our triune God. And for the next 20-odd weeks ahead of us, until Advent swings back around, we'll find ourselves wearing a lot of liturgical green, observing the long growing season after Pentecost, the great growing time. And what better way to kick off the next 5 months than to try and dive into the nuance and mystery of God's nature, right? It'll give us plenty to grow on. So you know what we're going to do to celebrate this Trinity Sunday? We're going to not talk about the Trinity. I'm mostly kidding. See, as Christians and as humans, I think we often find ourselves bamboozled and tripped up by a mystery. When something is hard to understand, or dare I say, impossible to understand, we strive with every fiber of our beings to understand it. We want to know, right? We want to check that box. Our urge is to be able to get our arms around the thing, to have it figured out. And the problem is, mysteries don't work that way. When you got out of bed this morning, what did you think you would experience here in church? Challenge? Comfort? Drudgery? Pain? I'd be willing to bet that all of that and more is here this morning. And all of it is here together. Because whether you acknowledged it actively or not, you made the choice to come here this morning and plug in, to be in this community, to encounter mystery together. And that mystery might or might not have been the Trinity. Figuring out how our three-person yet totally one God exists is beyond us. we'll never get our arms around that mystery. We do know, though, that God, as God, exists in perfect love and perfect community, even though mystery prevents us from knowing fully just what perfect love and perfect community look like. It's what we strive toward, even though we'll never get there. Commitment to the Christian life is a commitment to the liminal, the imperfect, the not fully figure-outable, and the mystery. It's an acceptance of the already and not yet, the seen and unseen, walking by faith and not by sight. And this is really hard work. Even in today's gospel reading, Jesus' last words on earth are, well, mysterious. I can picture the assembled disciples, a whole crowd of folks, staring up at the sky as Jesus ascended and the clouds took him. How are you going to be with us, Jesus, to the end of the age? You've just left us looking up into the air like a bunch of sunflowers, seeking your light and your warmth. How are you going to be with us, Jesus? And Jesus replies, I'm going to be with you. With you. In those moments when we find ourselves staring up and out into space, wondering if God's presence is really real, wondering if the mystery is in fact a truth, we find ourselves in intimate community with God and in community with one another. There's a deep, resonating assurance in Jesus' words. I am with you always. Always. In the wondering, in the grappling with mystery, in the dark, I am with you always. This isn't trite. This is what we believe. And this is what we encounter when we gather like this. We speak with our bodies and spirits, not just our words, that God dwells in us. God dwells in you. God is present in a way that we can't fully understand, but God is here. We are bound to God and God to us. It is impossible to scrub God off of ourselves. When we say we are made in God's image, each and every one of us, we acknowledge and hold to the mysterious reality that some part of God is made known in each of us. Some part of God's expansive self, some part of God's love. And that makes each part of us and each of us part of God's good work and God's sacred story. There is absolutely, positively no way to separate yourself from your belovedness. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. Your person is part of God's divine fingerprint on this world, and it wouldn't be God's fingerprint without you. Can I explain this mystery to you? I cannot. But I can tell you, without a doubt in my mind, that it is true. Because God's love for us is the truest thing there is. God's love is here, right here, right now and always, to the very end of the age. So as we leave here today, and as we gather next week and the many to follow, to come alongside one another and do this great growing season of our church year together, I have a few propositions. 1, know that mystery is okay. You will never have all the answers. I will also never have all the answers. And this church won't either. But we are here to gaze at mystery together, to marvel in its bigness, and to join hands in its presence. 2, be kind to one another, knowing that mysteries are hard. It's not easy to not have answers. Be gentle with one another, knowing that God is very much real in the person of each person you meet. And 3, perhaps most importantly, live confidently, knowing that we are not alone. We are never alone. God, the one who creates and redeems and sustains us, is always with us in this space, in our relationships, in our very selves, and everywhere in between. That's the power of connection. Thanks be to God. Amen.